The key is what are the controls you put in place to correct these mistakes and what are the processes that you're putting in place. If you don't have processes, you have nothing. I was 100% sure that I was going to find something. And we always find something, always. There is always something we can do to make the client save money.
Hello and welcome to the Gross Profit Podcast. My name is James Kennedy. I'm the CEO and co-founder at procurementexpress.com. We take the hassle out of managing our SMB spend without buying an ERP. So today I've got Benjamin Ziza from ITER Advisors to talk on the show. Now, as you probably may know at this stage, I've met many fractional CFOs, and it's a bit of a bugbear of mine that it's no secret. A lot of them are not great at explaining their own value. And in fact, I think that hiring a fractional CFO can be the most powerful hire you can make in your business beyond a certain stage, but that's just not well explained. But I've met someone, I think, that does a much better job than most at explaining and particularly getting clients over the line. So we've all had this experience where you build a pipeline, you got someone who's interested, but they just never really seem to buy. And I think Ben has something special to offer here when it comes to, and you can apply this whether you're a fractional CFO or you work in anything. If you want to sell to a CEO, I think Ben has something to offer. So Ben, thank you very much for coming on to the show. Maybe you can kick us off by telling us something about you that not many people know.
Hi, thanks for receiving me. Now, something I think people don't know is that I used to watch a lot of movies, but like a lot, and really interested in how you create a story, how you build it, and how it comes together. And I think people don't know that of me.
And when you think of the best story in any movie you've seen, which one do you think of straight away?
A lot of them, but for instance, for a long time, I was like a huge fan of movies like Fight Club or Forrest Gump, which has nothing to do one to another, but in both ways, this is like a fantastic way to tell a story. One with an imaginary part, like a utopia, something like very dreamy about it. So it's Forrest Gump, obviously. And the second one was from David Lynch, way more punchy, with more action, with more suspense, thriller, but still in both ways, writing is excellent, directing is excellent, and there is like many things to say about these two pieces of art, but I really like the way you organize, you tell a story. It's very interesting.
Very good. Yeah, I guess they both have movies with sort of twists and turns to them. Like they're both surprising stories.
And I say David Lynch, it was David Fincher.
Yeah, that's his mark, right? Yeah. I remember once I went to see Inception with a friend, and afterwards we went for a beer, and I said, wow, I asked him what he thought, and he went off talking about the movie for half an hour and all the different subplots and everything. And he asked me what I thought, and I said, it was a nice car chase. I don't know. I obviously didn't get what you got out of it, so maybe I'll bring you along next time I'm going to the movies to get the full value from a story. So we can't talk about movies all the time. Yeah. So maybe we both have funny accents. So let's explain your funny accent for a start and tell us a bit about where you are and how you got started in finance.
Okay, so my funny accent is coming from France, but I think that everyone would have understood that. So I'm coming from Paris. Today I'm living in Spain. It's been like 10 years that I'm living in Spain. And so I'm running like a fractional CFO company from there, Barcelona, Spain.
Very good. And obviously you were speaking Spanish day to day. Did you have to learn Catalan to get by, or can you get by with?
I understand Catalan. My son is talking Catalan, so I have to understand it a bit. Speak Spanish, French, English, Spanish, and some bit of Catalan.
Very good. So before you came to Spain, you have quite a, I don't want to say this in the wrong way, but you have quite a corporate background, quite a big company background.
Exactly. So basically, I started my studies like to become a chartered accountant and a financial auditor. So I started with a big firm such as Big Four firms. So it was in Mazars, and I was there like doing some accounting, audit, mainly audit, and also some consulting. So this was the start of my career. And then I decided after 3 years and a half to move to Spain. It was supposed to be just like a 2-year job, and I was supposed to come back in France. But as we just said, I was supposed to come back, and I'm still in Spain. So it was like more than 10 years ago. And so I stayed for the quality of life, but also because I could do my job. So after I was like in a big corporation, it was like a big consultancy company. It was at the time, I think it was like 300 million of turnover. And I was responsible. I was group financial controller of this company. And then I switched to regional CFO of France and Switzerland for this company. So it was a huge position. Then I switched to IWG, so it's the office is Regus. So again, it was like a very big company corporation. And then I was in charge of countries in Africa, the countries who speak French in Africa, and then the Spanish perimeter. And then I switched like to a finance director position in a AdTech group, a Spanish Catalan AdTech group, on which I saw like different business line. It was a very dynamic group, very interesting. And after all this experience, I created my company, ITER Advisors. So we are fractional CFOs. Now we are 10 people plus. And I think we are going to finish the year close to 15.
Okay, a lot of success there, and we'll get into your sort of closing technique to help which have facilitated that. But I wonder if you can answer me something about this career path. It's quite typical for people do a CPA, go to a Big Four is your first thing. But I know there's different ways you can get into Big Four. You can go to audit, you can go to management consulting, you can end up in M&A. There's all sorts of. What would you say is sounds like you ended up in the management consulting side a bit more?
I was more in audit side. And I think that if I could recommend something, I would recommend to go more to transaction services side. I think it's easier to rebound from transaction services than from audit. I was lucky from what I was doing because I had I did very few of accounting, a lot of audit, and I was doing a lot of consultancy. When I was doing consulting it was like for a big insurance company, like a very huge insurance company. And I had a long mission over there. And also I learned from a very good mentor. I think at the time, someone who was very demanding, but also who let me experience a lot of things. I don't know if this is relevant, but for instance, one thing I really liked about him is like he scared everyone, like really everyone. And one day we were supposed to have something. It was difficult. And he asked everyone in the room who could do that. And no one was responding. And I was junior at the time. And I say, if you let me 3 or 4 days, I can do it for you, but I need to look for, because I don't know yet, but I know that with internet, with everything, I'm going to solve your issue, your problem. And he let me these 4 days. And so I had a huge pressure because of course I said to him, like, I'm going to do it in 4 days. So during these 4 days, I worked day and night, but I came with a solution. And this was the kind of thing that I really liked. And I tried to learn from this guy.
Interesting. So this guy was a badass, for the want of a better expression. I found myself in my career sometimes not levitating, being attracted to that sort of character. Sometimes I feel like my life would be easier if I kept my head down. But sometimes when I see someone being difficult to work with, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to be the guy who can work with this guy.
Yeah. For me, the key is you can be not too strong with people, but it's fair. If the rules are clear, I think you can manage it. What I cannot manage is someone who is not fair, someone who is going to ask for something, but he didn't explain well, or change his mind because his boss changed his mind. So this I cannot work with, but someone who is fair, he can be as strong as he wants. As long as the rules are clear, it's really easy to navigate.
100% agree with that. And so, is this the style that you try to bring to you worked through the CFO phase, actually working as an in-industry CFO? Is that your style then when you're working actually in a company? And how does that work out for you?
I try to, it's always complicated. So when you're a manager, and I think it perfectly, it's always difficult between what you want to do and what you do. Sometimes, so what I want to do is I want my employees to feel well. I want my employee to not work too late. I want my employee to feel comfortable with me, with everyone. And we are trying to get this mood into the company. I think trying is already one part of the way. Also, I'm trying, so something I really develop to my company is I want people to be able to communicate freely. What I'm saying that is I don't care if someone is doing some mistakes, because we all do. Obviously, there is some mistakes that as a professional you should avoid, so you should put in place some controls in order for them to not happen. But if it happened, I think something which is key is how you manage the error. And that's why I'm saying that communication is key, especially when you're a manager, is I want to be able to trust people I'm working with. So I want to be able to understand, to know that if they are doing a mistake, and if they know, they're not going to hide it, and they're going to come to me. This is key because once you trust your team, you avoid a lot of work, like you useless work. You don't control as much as when you don't trust someone. So for instance, when there is a new employee, I control everything. And I control everything and I compare to what he's telling me. Too much, I know that more or less the communication is good, and then this is something that you build. If this is not matching, this is where I'm saying, okay, this is not wrong. I don't care that you didn't do well the thing, but I care that I'm not aware of that, about that. But again, that's the secret key. I'm not sure it's going to work. It's working.
Yeah. In theory, when you're running your own business, you get to set the culture. When these big companies you've worked in, IWG and so on, you were just parachuted in and you have to live with it. I think you're right about trust. Trust is the bedrock of everything else. I struggle sometimes to build trust with a team. Sometimes we do these all hands and I try and open my soul and be vulnerable. And sometimes I just get Tweety birds back. I'm like, oh, I'm glad I just embarrassed myself and try and put myself out there. And when I was younger, the strategy was you bring everyone to the pub, and in Ireland, we get drunk together. That's what we did over here. You can't even really do that anymore. It's not as cool as it was. So what do you do? What do you do to build genuine trust? Not like lip service, but have you any advice for me?
It's going to sound very cheesy. We try to be good people. I strongly believe, first of all, my partner is a better person than I am. So he's a good guy, and everyone is telling that. I'm very lucky to have a partner who is such a good guy, and he's a really good person. As you can say, like genuinely, he's a good person. He's taking care of people. He's asking. First of all, when one of the partner is like this, I think it also influences the rest of the people. And I'm trying to do what you're doing. This is something which is stupid. And again, we open doors that are already open, but we try to create some moments. It can be a dinner. It can be like asking a good condition of work. Like we have very nice offices, and we try to communicate as much as possible. I'm not natural like when I'm working, I'm like really deeply focused. So I know that I reflect this image of don't disturb me. So as I cannot do anything with that, what I'm trying to do is to tell them as much as possible that I'm aware of the image that you have from me. This is not what I want to reflect. So ensure that what I want is to communicate. So I try to verbalize what I know that I'm not able to do naturally. Unfortunately, there is my partner who is more like natural on these kind of things.
I think that's a great hack. I also have a partner, and Rich is easily much better with people than I am. And we make a joke of that. Like it's like that's the way it is. James is going to say stuff and then Rich will sort of paper over the cracks later on. Even just being aware of your own style. We do personality tests, which I'm not sure are maybe some sort of stargazing exercise, but they do provide a basis, at least for conversation. So you can say, oh, my style is hard charging or whatever it is. And then you get to understand. And I used to communicate with everyone in the same way, but then I started to realize, no, some people you need to communicate differently. So anyway, I'll leave most of that to Rich. So he outsourced that part of it. Okay, so let's get into, you chose, because within these big companies, like what I heard, we didn't say the word, but what I heard is there's a lot of politics in big companies. Like you don't get to set the agenda. And so when you decided to step out and build your own firm, you have a blank sheet. It's totally empty. What did you bring from your big organization that you thought was useful, and what did you want to leave behind?
Okay, so I think that's an easy one. From big organization, depending what, but for instance, for Mazars, I was very happy to start with that because it's a very good school. I learned to control myself. I learned to present some reliable information, financial information, to structure my thoughts, and to have this ability to, when I'm presenting something, I'm 100% sure of me. This is something which is very difficult to learn because this system is made that when you're producing something, it has to be good. And this is very strict. There is a lot of cons to this. And I wouldn't work in this kind of condition today, even though I think it has changed because from what I'm seeing, I think like everything has changed. But still at the time, it was tough, but it was like a very good school. And I'm always saying good stuff about Mazars because I'm really happy to have started with this company who shaped me the way I am today. After, it also learned me like when you're younger in this kind of organization, you're doing a lot of mistakes, and I've done some. So I also learned about how it is to navigate on an environment with everyone as an agenda. Everyone has his own issues. So it also helps you to understand with what is experiencing the other one. And I think this kind of thing, which is very complex in large organization, is very useful in small organization. So when I'm working, can be in my company, but also with clients, I think I've gained like an empathy about how to navigate with people and how to understand their pain point, which is what in the end, this is my job. My job is to understand the pain point of my clients.
Okay. So what I heard there was, in the big companies, everyone has an agenda. You have to look at it, have a certain amount of empathy and understand the stakeholders. Exactly. And also hold yourself to a high standard and you're bringing over, let's face it. Sometimes smaller companies don't have that high standard. So that's something you can bring in with your organization. Okay. So I don't want to bury the lead too much more. I've been bigging you up about how good you are at closing clients. So now, just a step before that is you've grown to, is it 16 people, 15 people now by the end of the year in a fairly short period of time? That's quite fast growth. And lots of people can meet people who in theory should have a fractional CFO, but then they often get stuck at this phase where, yeah, it's a good idea, maybe we should do it, but then nothing seems to happen. You're sending out proposals, people are saying you're a good guy, I must do that someday, but nothing happens. So what's your approach when you're talking to someone to explain the value and help the client get over the line and engage with you?
Okay. So basically, when I'm going to talk with a prospect, the thing is we are an alternative to hiring. So we are a cost center, 100% cost center, and we are seen as a cost center. Why should I pay more for something which is a back office function and in the end not necessary? So what we have to do is to convince them that they need us. And it's very difficult. Usually the good moment to talk to the prospect is when they have a pain, like in every business. And the pain for me is, I see three things. The first one is the CEO is doing the job, but it's taking too much time. So he has more value to do something else. And I need to highlight this. Okay, you're doing that, but you're supposed to be a salesperson. You spend X hour per day or per week doing that. You could dedicate this to sales. And if you succeed to have one more sales, you're losing money doing that. So this is the first thing, is it's taking you too much time. The second one is you don't have any idea of what are your financials. You don't know because you don't have this information. And in the end, it lets that you cannot take any good decision in your line of work. Okay, I've got cash, but what can I do with this cash? Can I invest it? Can I do next? Can I expand? Can I use it to hire people, to do some marketing, to develop my R&D? If you don't know and you're stuck, there is like a real pain, which is, can I hire this talent? And in this case, it's easy because, okay, I'm going to give you this vision and you are going to be able to manage your company. And the third one that I use usually is there is a mess. So there is an issue with tax administration, with a supplier, with a client, anything. But basically you had an issue and now you have to deal with that. There is people who are leaving your company because the intern that you took to do your finance is not happy. There is a mess and it's taking too much of your time. So basically this is one of the three that convince someone to hire a fractional CFO, but it's always complicated because you are perceived as a cost center and you need to prove that you are going to make them save money in a way.
Okay, you're hitting on a couple of points which I think make sense, because every CEO knows, my experience, that they are better off. The most high value thing they can be doing is selling. So more than likely it's selling or developing their business. And if you harp on this fact that every hour they're not doing that is a loss. So that makes sense. And then obviously the pain point thing makes sense. I guess people know that if their staff are complaining, they're not getting paid on time, or suppliers are becoming a hassle and stuff like that, all sucking up time as well. A lot of people don't see the value in that. But you have a story about a client that you knew that there was a lot of return on investment, let's call it that way, to be made, and you made an unusual offer to them. And maybe you could tell us a bit about that.
So it was this prospect who came like absolutely from nowhere. It was like from a friend of a friend, and it came to me. And so the clients told me the story, and it was about like a company. They didn't know how much money they were doing. They didn't know what there was the result, but they didn't know even what was the turnover. It was not like I'm doing it. It was like, yeah, between 15 to 20 million of turnover. So I was asking them, but you don't have any financials, anything? Say, yeah, I've got like an Excel file that I'm following everything in my Excel file. And then there is accountant in other countries. Say, but there is no consolidation. There is nothing. And so I had this Excel file. It was terrible, like absolutely terrible. It couldn't be right. They're not doing any controls. They have some delay in some of the countries, obviously. No one supervising. So a lot of stuff. So when I saw the situation, I knew 100% sure that I had something to do here. But he didn't want to pay for a service. So what I offered him, because I was 100% sure that there was some mess, is I told him, we are going to work exclusively on success fees. And I'm going to take 30% of all your mistakes that brings you money. Not even your mistakes, because I was sure that there was a lot of, but only if I can get you money, I take 30%. And then he said yes. The funny part is he did his calculation and he realized that my fees was not that expensive. Like my normal fees was not expensive for what I was supposed to do. And he realized that 30% of this mistake, if the mistake was, I don't remember what, but if the mistake was more than 100K, it was more profitable for him to pay me directly. So what he did is, after he came back to me, I said, okay, let's go with the normal fees, because he was afraid like having too high fees. And that's normal, because you cannot do no mistakes. It's impossible. You're always doing some mistake. The key is, what are the controls you put in place to correct these mistakes and what are the processes that you're putting in place. If you don't have processes, if you have nothing, I was 100% sure that I was going to find something. And you will always find something. Always. There is always something we can do to make the client save money. Always.
Okay. So yeah. All right. So you made it a very concrete transaction there. This is just like a no-brainer. You make them feel stupid, to be honest, for saying no. So an offer too good to be true. And then there's 3 techniques that you have in particular, like go-to moves where you're like, this makes sense. Yeah. Like I know here in Ireland, there's government supports, but you know what? I hate that paperwork. It's annoying. I love Enterprise Ireland. If they're listening to this, thank you very much for the money you have given us. Paperwork kills me. So talk us through some more specific ways you can say, listen, if you hire me, I'm going to be able to, this is the specific way I'm going to pay for myself.
Yeah. So when we are starting to work with the clients, obviously we have a roadmap, but what is important is what we're building with our clients is not only financial. What we pretend to offer to our clients is a right-hand CFO. So someone who is going to help them to build their business. We are offering a C-level position to their company. And what they are expecting from a C-level position in finance is first to have some reliable data. So this is the key. Without data and without a reliable job, you cannot do anything. But also, you are a trust partner and you are going to advise them on their business. So they want to come to you and ask you, okay, I want to do that with my business. I want to hire this person. I want to fire this person. What do you think? I want to open new market, etc. So what we try to do is to build this relationship, this trust relationship. And what we try to do every time we are entering new clients is first find some savings. So we have a cost, we are perceived as a cost center. So first we want to say, okay, we are a cost center, but this year is for free because I find something. And it can be anything. It can be a double payment for provider. It can be some subventions that they are not using and then can use. It can be anything, but we try to find something. Or it can be like a time saving for a function. Someone you're paying like 30K and then you just saved half of his. So you don't have to hire another function. So it has to be something that you're finding which is going to reduce your cost and the perception of your cost. This is the first thing. So this was the wow effect. The second one is you want to deliver something very quickly. Sometimes it's difficult because when you enter as a CFO or as a fractional CFO, it is messy. So you have to collect the data, you have to contact the accountant, you have to do something. And sometimes it takes some time. It can take months to have something which is clean. What we want to do is whenever we enter a client, we want to create a deliverable. Why? Because we are a service, we are a consulting company, and we don't want to let the impression that we are working on words. Like we are doing something and we give you a deliverable because you paid that for me. And so basically we did some work and this is what we did. And so it's very important this because, especially when I began this work, I was trying to do it in a good way. So I was trying to say, okay, let's first clean the account, then first do that, then that. And so the first deliverables that I was showing was 3 months after. And I was seeing this impression of what are you doing? Like I'm paying. Sometimes they were paying some onboarding fees and they were just like, why I am paying as you're not producing anything. So now I produce something as fast as possible. And if it's not 100% exact, it doesn't matter. I'm still producing something and showing that I'm working. And the last I do when I start with a new client is I show a lot of presents, a lot of meetings, a lot of questions, a lot of things. Why? Because again, what you're trying to build here is a relationship with the client. And especially at the beginning where you can ask a lot of things. It's not natural after 6 months of collaboration to say, by the way, what is your revenue model? We were supposed to ask this the very first day, not 6 months after. And again, we do this kind of mistake, which is we are building at the very beginning everything to build it logically, but not showing that much of presence because we are feeling that we are not going to make the client lose his time. But it's on the contrary, because sometimes we came with some questions very late and we felt like it was strange to ask these questions that late. So now it's at the beginning to not feel stupid 6 months after the beginning of the mission.
It's like when you meet someone for the 5th time and you know you should know their name, but you just can't remember it right now, but it's too late.
The story of my life. The story of my life. This.
Absolutely. So I think the key thing here, you keep mentioning speed, and what I call that is time to value, right? Because if you imagine you buy anything, you have natural buyer's remorse. As soon as you sign on the line, okay, now I'm up for whatever, $100, $200, $300 an hour straight away. And straight out, what the buyer is afraid of is someone's going to catch them out and say, hey, why did you buy Ben? Why'd you buy him? He seems nice, but like, what's going on? And if you don't give the buyer a very good answer, they feel stupid. If you don't have a great answer, say, hey, you know what? Ben came in. he saves us 15 grand on our tax bill. Or he came in, he got us this support from the government that I didn't even know. Action Coach, who is a coaching system based in the US, all around the world, they do this. They're famous for this. The first thing you do when you hire a business coach is they pay for themselves. They don't do anything else. They don't do any of the fancy stuff or the vision boarding or the whatever ayahuasca trips or whatever they do. But they go straight for, listen, let me just pay for myself this year, and then everything else is a bonus. Although there's a lot of stuff we all know have to be done. Sometimes there's cleanup, sometimes there's just basics, let's say.
Yeah.
It's not always smart to start off with that. It's sometimes smart to just go for an easy win that basically give the buyer a good answer for why, yes, I bought Ben. And that effect lasts forever. You could work for them for the next 10 years. As long as that prospect's able to say, yeah, I hired him in the first 3 months. He paid for a new FTE by doing XYZ. That's it. You're in.
Exactly that.
Yeah. I love it. And there's a lot of to be able to offer that no fall, no fee or percentage. What gave you the confidence? I know you said it was whatever, $15-20 million business. You must have felt there was something like that. What were you going to do if you couldn't find it? Were you just happy to donate the hours then?
Yeah, no. So if I couldn't find anything, I wouldn't have found anything. And in this case, I would have said, I don't know how you're doing this. This is magical, but your business is under control, which it's impossible. Like really from my experience, it's impossible. How I could do this kind of deal is, first of all, I've been doing that for many years now, and we always find something. And it's also the experience. I was not that good at everything when I started, but the thing that I was good at was finding some issues. I'm very good at finding some issues. So the mentor I told you earlier was telling me, Ben, I'm sick of the issues. You have one issue, it came with 2 solutions. And this is also something that I kept, because now I'm telling that to the people I work with is, okay, I understand that there is a lot of issues that you have, but find 2 solutions, because we are paid to find solutions, not to find issues. That being said, I'm good at anticipating things, and the more experience you have, the more things you can see. So for instance, when I'm reviewing like a reporting, I'm just reviewing now the eye figures. I'm just like seeing like the overview, but I can spot with experience, but other experienced CFO, we can spot with experience things that doesn't add up. I knew that with 15 million euro of business, there has to be some issues. It's impossible. And the thing is, with this level of invoicing, there is an issue of payment somewhere. And there is necessarily issues with tax administration somewhere. And there has to be an issue. So that's why I'm saying that. And my plan for this mission was not to go exhaustive, but to go with big figures and to find a way, like very quickly, we had a plan with 2 days of work, finding issues and finding where we could see some benefits for us. And after 2 days of full work, like 16 hours of work, I think we would have known if it was worth investigating more or not.
Yeah.
We didn't need that much. It's not like a formal audit. It was just like an experience, and it cost me only 2 days of consultants. So it was acceptable for me. The ratio risk reward was interesting enough to do this proposal.
Yeah. And marketing has a cost, and you can put it up into your marketing budget. Hey, okay, I'm part of your exploration. And then, yeah. Okay. I'm going to ask you what your ideal customer is, but from your experience, who is the customer you definitely don't like working with? Flip it on its head a little bit.
I think so. When it's not working, because it doesn't happen much, but it has happened from the past. So when it's not working, I think the first case that comes to mind is someone who needs a CFO, but take a fractional CFO only for budget purposes. So it doesn't have the money to take a CFO, but it needs one. And the issue that this kind of company should ask themselves is, if you need one, you need to find a way to pay one. If you need a full-time contract, you need to go to your investors, you need to go wherever it takes, but take this CFO. Because if you expect a fractional one to do the same thing that someone who is going to do full-time job costing 3-4 times more than what you have, you cannot do anything. And in this case, there is 2 people are not happy. The client is not happy because he doesn't have what he wants. And the CFO is not happy because he knows he's doing some bad job, because he's requested to do something that was not on the mission letter. So both are unhappy. And in this case, if it's not a match, it's not working at all.
So this is the flip side of what we just talked about, where, hey, you can decide you're going to do some exploratory work, but then you know when to call it And because it's very easy to be a nice guy, right? And just keep on doing a bit of this and a bit of that. And there's a natural inclination to want to say yes.
And especially because we are a service company. So what I'm trying to do is first to deliver good work, but also build a reputation. So from the beginning with my partner, we are trying to work as good as possible with my clients and make them as happy as possible. And we also try to get some good companies, some good logos. So sometimes when you have a good logo and you say, okay, it doesn't matter, we are going to do the extra mile. But sometimes it's not the extra mile that they want. They want the extra mile. And in this case, I understand, for instance, because I have a client in mind, I understand why I accepted this offer, even though from day one, I knew like it was not enough to do this kind of mission. And then I discovered the more the mission advanced, the more I discovered that the budget was not in line at all with what they expected from me. But this is something that happened and lesson learned. And now there is some clients that we refuse because we see that this is not matching what we can offer. Everything has to be learned.
Yeah. Like my wife does this all the time and it drives me nuts. She'll have a client, she says, no, the logo is great. It'll be great to work for X, Y, or Z. And I'm like, are they paying you? Then they're not great. It's not a great client. Are you sure about that? Everyone has their own answer to this. But let's say you get to that moment, you've been doing more work than was scoped, or how do you handle that whole thing? Because sometimes if you're like me, sometimes you can wait till it's too late and then you handle it badly. You're like, I've already done this work for you. So how do you head that off at the pass? What's your approach?
It's very difficult to put some boundaries. I have something which is easier, and this is also why we're doing that this way, is every month, this is a fixed fee. And it's very important because there is some months where I'm going to work more, but there is also some months where I'm going to work less. So usually, sometimes I was doing so when you bill the hour, the issue is when you're doing a job, the client is telling me, I don't understand why you took so much time to do that, so I don't want to pay, and then we're entering into discussion. So this case, we didn't have it because all the clients that we bill per hour was some emergency mission where we worked by night, the weekend, stuff like this. So the client was aware that there was like huge mess and that we are cleaning the mess. So in this case, we didn't have this issue. What we had is, so we have a fixed fee, and what we say to our client is we are not going to increase our fees unless there is a change of scope. And in our mission letter, we include everything that we are going to do. That being said, we always do more. Why? Because we want to please our client. We are still an outsider. We are still growing our company and we like our clients also. So sometimes we are doing this because we don't want to enter that you're calling me for something that was not expected. I am billing you. And when we are doing our budget, we include the fact that we know that we are going to have some extra requests. And that's why we are doing it without any issue. That being said, you open a new country, a new subsidiary, you have a lot of things to do. The work is changing drastically. We come to our client and we negotiate some new fees. But the thing is, we always did the extra mile because also this is how we want to grow our business with trust. After, if this is a good thing, I don't know. I have no clue if this is a good thing. This is how we do things, but I don't have the clue if this is a good solution or not. Maybe not.
Yeah, it's interesting because speaking of letters of engagement, that's always when I hire, let's say a professional, let's say a lawyer, particular one, you have these 10-page letter of engagement you're signing up to at the start. And I know there's no other way to do it, but it's annoying. But what I tell people to do is, a lot of people say to me, we don't use purchase orders. And this is a great example of when using a purchase order is a good idea. Because if you may or may not know, you know this, but listeners may not know that you can use an LOE. Let's say you take on a professional, but if you use a purchase order, the purchase order, as long as it comes after the LOE, will take precedence. So that means that you can set your own terms for dealing with your suppliers rather than dealing on their terms. Now, we all know you need to start reading the terms, it's already over. But even psychologically, it's a good approach. Telling people that, if you hire a lawyer, you should probably be using purchase orders. You may not think you should be, but actually, it's probably a good idea. So a little plug there for Procurement Express. Could not resist, Ben. It's in my blood. So tell me a bit about wind up here by telling us a bit about ITER Advisors. Where did you get the name for a start, and how can people get in touch with you?
So ITER Advisors, actually, it's because I met my partner in a bar named ITER. So the story is very simple, but also what we liked is in our job, so ITER, it's the way, the path, but it's also iteration. We like the idea of we were starting our business, and what we do is we iterate about how to get, like you iterate as a business, as a CEO, we iterate too. And now we know what's working, what is not working, and we are very flexible also. So and I think this is something that's qualified both my partner and myself, is we are not afraid to be wrong. I don't take it personally. If I'm wrong, and if you prove me wrong, I'm happy because I'm less stupid. And I'm going to argument a lot. If I strongly believe something, it's going to be very complicated to prove me wrong. But if you prove me wrong, I'm very happy. I don't have any pride of saying, okay, I was wrong. And that's why we like to iterate. We iterate, we do some mistakes, and we learn from our mistakes. And I think this is the best way to get like a good professional, is to follow this iteration way.
Yeah, the way you're explaining it there seems like it would resonate with tech companies. Am I wrong? Like, it seems like that sort of clean-cut, analytical approach, take the ego out of it, no drama, let's just fix the problem.
I'm a very analytical guy. I don't know why I didn't end as an engineer, but I always like math. I always had a very logical. I like logic. Like I don't know how to act when people are not logic. So when I'm talking, even in my personal life, and someone is illogical in the way he's thinking, it's always difficult for me to make them understand things. So when people are logical, either way, like if we are logical and if we disagree, it's because we don't have the same value or because we don't have the same level of information, more or less. So if we can agree on some common ground with the same level of information, and that's why we have an argument, we should come to a conclusion. We should come. Even if we got some very different values, we should come to a common conclusion. But if someone is illogical or doesn't remember the arguments that we exposed to before, it's very complicated. And so you cannot argue with this person, you cannot work with this person. So that's why it's very, like, the logical approach is very important for us.
Very good. So you've got the .com domain, ITERadvisors.com, if I'm not wrong.
Exactly.
And people can reach out to you there. There's an about page and get in touch. So let's wrap it up just by asking, I have a same rinky-dink question I ask everyone at the end of the podcast. Who's your business hero and why?
Yeah, so I could say like it's Steve Jobs or whatever. To be honest, I don't like a business hero. First of all, because I don't like to personalize too much people. I think I'm one person, there is always an organization, even though there is some people who have definitely a vision. But you can have a vision, and for instance, Elon Musk has definitely a vision. I'm not so much a huge fan of the person. So what I admire in CEO is someone who could develop his vision and a good business by taking care of maybe the people who are working with him. And I think this is difficult because we used to grow in an environment where only sharks, people with very strange personalities, were successful. And now it has changed like a lot. Now it's not well seen, but you have to be exigent. You need to protect your vision. If we take the case of Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, they are horrible person. A job, let's say, because it might be like very interesting, like good vision, but it's very difficult to work with them. And the fact is they have to, because if they want to have a boat going to the good direction, they have to impose some certain stuff. But I admire people who can conjugate the fact of having this strong vision and also being good with people.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I knew these sports people who got to the Olympics, and they were, to be honest, not very nice people. They were great at their sport, but terrible at everything else. And that was the cost. That's maybe the cost of being awesome and being extreme. Let's put it that way. But maybe Sheryl Sandberg or someone like that, who's renowned, someone who brings the team along and is able to build a culture or whatever. Very good. All right. I get the pushback though on heroes though, because you're right. No one's perfect.
No, but
I'll be me, you be you.
If you want, I can give you a hero. Like, for instance, one who comes to mind like more easily is some guys like Adam Sandler, for instance. If you can consider him as a businessman, so he's obviously doing some jokes. He's a comedian, but he's also a director. He's also, so after you like his movie, you don't like his movie. I'm not going to say this is piece of art, but again, at least he's making a good business of his own. And from what is perceived, he succeed to conjugate his job, his many activities with a happily family life, good circle of friends, good relationship at work. I've only learned some good stuff about him wherever he passed. So the thing is, he built a business, like a very successful one, but having all his personal life perfect. Okay, you have your hero. In the end, I
agree with that. Let's bring it back to movies. I like it. It's a good place to wrap up. And thanks very much, Ben. And thank you for listening to the podcast. If you've got this far into the podcast, your special reward is to go to procurementexpress.com/partners. I've recorded a webinar on my take on how fractional CFOs can better explain their value to CEOs and people who can hire them. And also, we've got a case study there where you can learn how Ben de la Creta, one of our partners, uses Procurement Express to deliver value fast for his fractional clients. He works in biotech, so it's an interesting case study. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for coming along. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks so much, James. It was very interesting, and thanks for receiving me.